President Trump's trip to the Middle East continues in Doha, Qatar today, and the president has been focused on securing trillions of dollars in new U.S. investments. And he's doing well. He's also laying out his bold vision for the future of the Middle East region. President Trump claims the Middle East needs to be united around commerce, and he's taking some new steps to jumpstart what could be a major relations reset. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-hosts Emily Compagno and Kayleigh McEnany. Also joining us today, Laura Trump, host of My View with Laura Trump, and Kevin McCarthy, chairman of the Alpha Institute and former Speaker of the House. First, though, I want to go live to Lucas Tomlinson in Doha with the very latest. So this has been staccato, very fast-moving president abroad. Lucas?
There's no question, Harris. President Trump is talking about commerce, not conflict here in the region. And not long after arriving here in Qatar from Saudi Arabia, President Trump and the Emir inking a $1.2 trillion economic agreement, which includes a big deal with Boeing. The Qataris want to order 160 Boeing aircraft. That is the largest deal in the company's history. Here's President Trump earlier.
I just want to thank you for the friendship, for the long-time friendship. And again, long before any of this stuff, we just liked each other. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
After arriving under fighter escort from the Qataris, President Trump was greeted by the Emir at the bottom of the stairs. And then here's the president's armored car, the Beast, being escorted along the streets of Doha with full military honors and passing this camel contingent. Remember yesterday the Saudis rolled out those Arabian stallions, perhaps geldings. Before landing in Saudi Arabia this morning, Trump met with the new president of Syria, who 6 months ago had a $10 million bounty on his head as leader of an al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. But after the overthrow of the Assad regime, this new Sunni president wants to do business with Trump. The Saudis support it. Israel perhaps a little nervous. Trump hopes Syria joins the Abraham Accords and recognizes Israel, build Trump Tower in Damascus. There's real politic going on right now in the region, Harris. Trump received a standing ovation yesterday in Saudi Arabia when he announced that he was removing sanctions on Syria. The goal, to keep Iran out of the country, perhaps kick the Russians out too. Here was Trump earlier aboard Air Force One describing his meeting with the new young 42-year-old president.
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass, very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
Now, Qatar maintains close ties with Hamas. Idan Alexander probably not freed without the relationships between the Trump administration and the Qataris. And also, no country gives more to U.S. universities than the Qataris. Kayleigh, Georgetown University has a campus here in Doha. And, of course, the largest U.S. military base in the region is right here in Qatar. Harris?
Lucas, thank you very much. Speaker, it is interesting all that the president is doing simultaneously. And the backdrop of this, of course, is bringing home an American out of the hands of Hamas, but doing it while you're going to the soil of the country that's known to support Hamas. Like, how complicated a mission is this for President Trump?
It's very complicated, but I believe when we study this in history, this is going to be one of the most successful foreign policy trips and a resetting. There's so much going on here. One, the economics. Two, the contrast to American president 3 years ago, Crown Prince not even meeting him. We looked like we were begging for him to produce more oil. We looked weak. And then what transpired? China came in and put Saudi Arabia and Iran together. What's happening on this trip? The strength of America is back. You look at the respect they're giving President Trump, but even more, you're getting the conflict taken care of. You're looking for Saudi Arabia to embrace the Abraham Accords. You're controlling the price of oil, actually lowering it, because we produce so much in them. What that does, it hurts Putin, because his whole economy is based upon oil. That helps end the war in Ukraine, get him to the table. It also shuts down Iran when they want to grow, because now they can't produce as much oil, unites the whole Middle East around it. And there is now one leader in the world that's showing his strength.
That's a multifaceted strategy. That doesn't just happen. No. That vision just doesn't get laid out a few days ago.
But he's been working on this even before he became president. You watch the movement that he's done before coming here. But economically, it's smart for us, foreign policy, right? And he is such a strong leader, he can embrace somebody that may have caused us problems and correct that course.
Laura, talk to me about how the rest of the world, particularly China and Iran, view this.
Well, they see the strength. I think the speaker's exactly right when he says the contrast between 3 years ago when Joe Biden went and right now.
Fist bump?
Could not be more different, obviously. I think whenever you talk about the way he laid the plan in place for this, he talked throughout the course of the transition to every Middle Eastern leader, and they talked about bringing peace to the region. They talked about a resetting, about restructuring things. I mean, it's been 25 years since we've seen an American president meet with the leader of Syria. That happened today. And I think one of the things that he said, this is a quote from him, he said, we're willing to end past conflicts and forge new partnerships for a better, more stable world. This is good not just for America, but for the world. And President Trump is the only leader who could deliver this right now.
Yeah, I want to just come back with this. An Obama aide today, speaking to what you're talking about, even came out and said that recognizing that you needed to wipe away the sanctions, those tough sanctions on Syria under a new government that was not in place when those sanctions were put into place is huge.
Right. Absolutely. And that's what this president is about. You know, there may have been things in the past that weren't done perfectly by either other presidents, other regimes, other countries. We have an amazing opportunity right now to reset it all. And President Trump is going to seize this moment. And I think having a great relationship with the Middle East is a positive thing for all of us.
Look, I know we'll get into this a little bit later as well, Kayleigh, but you can't look at the scene and what's accomplished without thinking about what in the world was Biden doing. Because look at how much movement is made on so much ground here at home. Inflation ticked down, started to cool down again yesterday. I mean, all the things that are going on, but particularly in that part of the world.
Yeah, I can tell you what Biden was doing 1 year ago today. I'll get to that in just a moment. To Laura's point about resetting Middle East relations, she's exactly right. And Lucas Tomlinson gave me a little shout out there and said, Kayleigh, Georgetown, Hoya Sack said they have a Qatari campus there. I actually took an Israel-Palestinian relations course with some of those students from Qatar, and we did it virtually. And I bring that up because there was this effort to create dialogue between me as a U.S. student in Washington, D.C., and my colleagues and the Qatari students. And it's those kinds of face-to-face interactions that solve problems. And here you have President doing that on a much bigger level than a college classroom, doing it on the world stage, saying it's better when we talk. He's exactly right. But to your point about Biden, it's an important one. Look at what President Trump was doing today. What was Biden doing a year ago today? A year ago today, there was a headline in the Wall Street Journal, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. And it talks about how he mistakenly thought a U.S. hostage was in the audience of an event. It talks about how he mistakenly called himself the vice president. And it notes what the West Wing was doing behind the scenes 1 year ago today. What the West Wing was doing was calling up Democratic lawmakers who were expressing their concern about President Biden and telling them to change their story. What President Trump did a year later is engage in frenetic diplomacy on Air Force One, that's in the words of Axios, trying to solve 4 world conflicts with Syria, Iran, Gaza, and Russia. Personal diplomacy, personal outreach from the President of the United States to make us safer. This is what you get in Trump world.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the difference in the optics, Emily. Our president was met at the airport by the Saudi crown prince. Joe Biden was given a little fist bump outside the big house, as I call it.
Yeah, I think the symbolism of respect is widely appreciated across the globe. Picking up where you dropped the football, or where you carried the football, picking up a few yards further, Kayleigh, absolutely. So think about how this is being characterized in the narrative around a frenetic trip of diplomacy. When the reality is that, per your point, Laura, that actually the seeds of this were planted a long time ago. This is not a sudden, spontaneous landing engaging in bullish diplomacy. This is actually a massaging of a developed relationship that this president is committed to, because it's not the geopolitical intervention that we have inherited and become accustomed to as Americans, which is why we leave so much blood and treasure in foreign countries. It's a business-oriented investment, and that's the difference. Because when he lands on the soil, he says, why are we continuing sanctions 2 governments ago, 2 generations ago, that have crippled your country? He says, I do not have forever enemies. And perhaps many of you do, but I said the president, do not. And that's the kind of optimism that truly, if we're looking toward global peace and the investment by these countries in stability, the recognition of Israel as a sovereign state, that occurs with business and economic interest, because it's that free market, right, and that thriving economy, that's how we can preserve the peace for their constituents. So that's why this development and this investment in those relationships is so crucial. So don't listen to the left-wing media sort of phrasing this as some type of tantrum when it is anything but.
Yeah. Speaker, you had a last word.
He's also looking to the future. If we didn't lift those sanctions, Russia's already there, would expand, and Iran would come in. So not only is he ending old conflicts, he's making sure the future is safer. And only he can do it. It's his sheer strength and power. And the thing we didn't mention, it's not just him there. He has the titans of industry with him.
That's right.
So it shows the whole world. Every country wants NVIDIA. Every country wants Elon Musk. And America has them. And what he's showing the rest of the world, they all support President Trump. And it only makes America stronger and the world safer.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.